What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Moose, with the Viper's Nest. Made it to episode 6, just barely. What a rough week 2 for the Vipers. We'll get on that. We'll talk about in depth their game with the Seattle Dragons last Saturday. We'll get into the XFL action in our segment around the XFL. And of course, we've got your hot takes and we've got your good, bad, and ugly about that Dragons Vipers game. All coming at you here at the Vipers Nest. Let's hit that intro. All right, everybody. Episode 6, Viper's Nest. Let's get going. It's your host, Moose, with the Sports Heap. As always, I'm joined by my co-host. Let's bring him right in. Let's go right to MRod Cam. It's MRod. How's it going, MRod?
I wouldn't say like always. I know I've been MIA here, there, but hopefully I'm back here shortly once I'm moved in last week in my current house. I'll be moving into my next house next week and then got some renovations and I will hopefully be back full pledge. So I probably will miss the next 2-3 shows, giving you a fair warning, but I will be back after that.
That's okay. We'll hold it down for you, of course. We're excited for the move. I think you're upgrading the man cave experience on your end as well.
Yeah, that is the goal. Make something a little more graphically visual than just wall. But yeah, we'd like to get some more branding and stuff here, so have a little bit more visuals. Maybe get my own little.
You gotta get your own board, the interception board.
Yeah, I was about to say, or maybe do a touchdown board. But looks like right now, after 2 weeks, it may be unnecessary.
Yeah, make sure you get you keep your receipt on the touchdown board. Hopefully, week 3 is when we're gonna see the first offensive touchdown. But we'll get into all that, of course. Big welcome to the Viper's Nest, episode 6 of our vlog and podcast. Again, I'm your host, Moose. MRod and I have been doing this now for a couple episodes as part of our podcasting and vlog project, the Sports Heap, which is our channel on YouTube. So you can always watch our pre-recorded or live shows. Sometimes we'll go live on YouTube. We haven't done that yet with Viper's Nest. Maybe we'll do that. Kind of a recap of the first home game. Maybe we'll go live for Viper's Nest. But you can always watch us on YouTube. Search for our channel, The Sports Heap. It'll pop right up. You'll see our playlist for all our shows and podcasts that we do. Then, of course, you can always listen to us in the car. I always find myself listening to me, once we drop a new episode, just to see how it sounds and kind of get feedback and see what stupid things I manage to say and how I can get better. But always find us on our podcasting platforms, your favorite ones. Apple Podcasts, really easy to find us. iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, all there at your fingertips on your phone. Also, some other great Vipers podcasts out there as well. So even if you search for Vipers, you'll find us and a couple of our colleagues that we've been working with out in the Fang Gang.
So, and also, don't forget, you can also say, "Hey Google, play the Viper's Nest."
Yeah, there it is. It probably just did it for you now. You're probably mad at your Google. So we appreciate MRod getting that for you there. If you're watching this at home, tell us if it worked, by the way, because I tried to do it the other day and it was being a little goofy. But it should usually find Viper's Nest for you. As we get into it, I'm here sipping on some water. MRod, I know both of us are a little drained by our not only drained by how badly the Vipers have been playing, but also by here getting ready for moves. I'm here wedding planning. I went to happy hour, which apparently once you hit 30 and change and go to happy hour, it doesn't go well for you. So let's drain our sorrows in talking about week 2 of the Vipers season so far. But let's start, before we get to that, as we always do, around the XFL. We'll start with our first game, of course. Guardians at Defenders.
Cardale Jones looked really good again. That's my take on that.
MVP?
Uh, PJ Walker. I got PJ Walker right now. I think has him a little bit beat.
Yeah, I'm kind of crushing on PJ Walker too. I remember one of my first tweets about the XFL was when watching the Roughnecks game. It was like, oh, PJ Walker looks shaky. Doesn't look like he's very good, and he went ahead and proved me wrong. Not only last week but this week as well. He had a great, just another great showing from PJ Walker. We'll get into that game, of course, at the end. That was the last game of the week, but Cardale Jones. Usual stat lines, about pretty close to 63% completion rating, 23 out of 37, of course. Almost 300 yards in the air and 2 touchdowns. Had that one pick, basically the only positive moment for the New York Guardians other than a semi-decent run game. But it was really the downfall of Matt McGloin.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a very tough game going through for 44 passing yards, 2 interceptions. And I can definitely see he got pretty frustrated calling out his team on the sidelines.
Oh man, I love the interviews. Like it's amazing how we have that access, and you could see him just like you said, throwing the team under the bus. Like, oh well, we need to change everything we're doing. Everything is terrible, and the coaching's terrible. Like it was.
Yeah, but to his defense, I mean, they were scoring any points, the ball wasn't moving. So yeah, maybe it's time to change offensive game plan.
Which they did. They put in a new quarterback eventually.
They definitely did. But I mean, New York Guardians, I know last week people thought they looked good, but they were playing against the Vipers, and I guess when you're playing against the Vipers is really not saying much. But I think this game really exposed the Guardians more than we expected them to be exposed. And the quarterback play, their offense is barely moving the ball. Offense looked just as bad as the Vipers' offense. Their defense just couldn't contain Cardale Jones. He had 2 receivers at almost 100 yards. Eli Rogers, he had 8 targets that game, 50 yards. Offensive game, running the ball with all their different quarterbacks. I think they added up a total of 100 yards. So, I mean, defenders definitely do look like a pretty good team all around. Definitely one of the better teams. Probably the best team in the East. I would say that. I'd go out on a limb and say they're probably the best team in the East, though.
Yeah, they looked like they were buzzing. They had this was the first game for Pumphrey, and he looked strong. I mean, I think if you could critique anywhere of the Defenders game last week was maybe a little bit more of a rushing presence, and they definitely got that. Like you said, 100 yards combined, basically from the 3 or 4 players that ran the ball, including a wide receiver here and there, along with Cardale Jones. I think he had 1 run. But yeah, I actually didn't realize that they almost had 2 100-yard receivers. And then of course Pumphrey coming out of the backfield as well, and Eli Rogers was a strong game. But I think the big story for DC is their defense. I think their defense. I think they're going to give the Roughnecks a run for their money in terms of team defense. About 3 more sacks for them. Wasn't too flashy of a game. Only 4 pass deflects, and they had 2 picks, when one of them being a pick 6. But I mean, they just really they made McGloin look uncomfortable all day. So maybe it didn't really necessarily translate into the sack numbers. But I mean, McGloin didn't have time to throw the ball and was making bad decisions most of the time right into the hands of DC defenders.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough game for them. Great game for defenders. What was the next game? Let's skip our Vipers game. Let's go over to the Renegades and the Wildcats.
Of course, that final for the defenders, 27-0. I don't know if we said the score. So the first shutout in XFL history goes to the DC defenders defense, 27-0.
Nice.
Let's hop over to that Sunday afternoon game, my MRod.
We got the DC Defenders, a pretty anticipated game. Landry Jones
Renegades.
Oh, I said DC Defenders.
You got them on your mind. I'm telling you, they're the number 1 team in the East, borderline number 1 team in the league. But yes, the Renegades, they're back.
The Renegades here from Dallas. I was anticipating seeing Landry Jones, since he was like the first player announced as an XFL player, biggest name at the time. when they did announce him. So he came out there actually, didn't look too bad at all. Yeah, he did have two interceptions, had 70% completion, 305 passing yards. The Renegades actually put up a pretty impressive showing. I mean, putting up how many yards? Like over 400 yards of combined offense, almost 500 almost.
Yeah,
Uh,
444, I think. And I mean, this is really what we expected week one out of the Renegades. And I think it goes to show the difference that Landry Jones had on this team. And he played, I mean, definitely not in the first quarter at all. He looked rusty and struggled. But I mean, this is the game we expected out of him and what we expected really in week one should he have played. So I think Renegades really look potentially dominant, and they got their running game going. I think Artis Payne almost had
yep,
100 yards.
99,
99, and he was
two touchdowns.
two TDs. And how many yards receiving did he have? 32. So,
Yeah,
almost 130 all-purpose yards with he was averaging what, over 7 a carry, which
yeah,
is
7.1, 14
that
attempts.
that's gonna work for you most of the time when your running back is consistently getting 7.1 a carry.
Then over on the Wildcat side, Josh Johnson making his first start. I don't think he started week
That's
one
right.
either.
Yeah, both quarterbacks making their debuts.
And Josh Johnson didn't look too bad. I mean, his completion percentage, 53% was a little low, just under 200 yards. Did have two touchdowns and no interceptions. So he would have a nice little zero on the Wildcats podcasters interception board. So that's looking good for them. Um, Running game, a little weak. Um, Maybe under, it looks like under 60 yards total by the team, but they only had about 17, 18 carries. So there wasn't, I mean, they were playing from behind, it looks like most of the game. So they were more focused on the pass. 34 pass attempts there by Josh Johnson. But I mean, he didn't look too bad. He's a journeyman, been on like many NFL teams. So nice to see him finally get a starting job. Receivers, Spruce, 90 yards
Yeah,
on
he had a
six receptions,
big game
two
finally.
touchdowns.
Because he looked like he had talent last week, and it's just Kanoff couldn't get the ball to him. They really struggled getting the ball to their receivers. This game was kind of weird because it was no scoring at all in the first. So, after the amazing slate of games on Saturday, it's, watching the Vipers in Seattle was basically watching paint dry for most of the game. Then you have another quarter, and here everyone complaining, oh, here we go. The XFL product is trash because no one can score, and the quarterbacks are crappy. And even through the second quarter at halftime, it was 3-3. So everyone's like, oh, here comes the under again. Then even in the third quarter, I think there was another field goal, 6-3, and then all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose in the fourth quarter. Alternating scores. 9-6, 12-9, then the extra point, then it went up to 19-9, and then LA trying to make a comeback. They got as close as 19-18 actually, and then kind of a closing out touchdown. Artis Payne really put the dagger in the last minute with a touchdown, and the Renegades taking the 25-18 lead. So probably a little bit closer than it should have been if you're a Renegades fan. But I'd say encouraging if you're a Wildcats fan, because after that game against the Roughnecks, they were everyone was writing them off.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, they had a quarterback who was not just like the Renegades, and I have their starting quarterback there. So I mean, definitely did make a difference for both of those teams. So I mean, the Wildcats are not as bad as I thought. Overall, that West definitely looks pretty competitive.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and we'll talk about the Dragons in a moment. I mean, even they had flashes of brilliance. I mean, I think they're gonna finish towards at the bottom of that division, but it's only because the other teams are so good.
And then next we got over, and then yeah, the final score of that game, 25-18.
25-18
So only by
Renegades.
touchdown. Next game here, we have the Battlehawk and the Roughnecks, two of the better teams here. This is kind of like this would have been your Sunday night football, potentially Monday night football in the NFL. Two pretty good teams, looking really good so far, coming up against each other. Um, Roughnecks actually got to edge them out, 28-24. I mean, both teams look pretty good. What do you think, Moose?
I just think, a lot of the attention's going to PJ Walker, and a lot of the attention's going to Cardale Jones, but I think third, and I know it's only a league of 8 teams, but when you're talking quarterbacks, you got to start talking Jordan Tamu because again, over 80% completion. I think how many yards did he have running? I mean, over 30 yards rushing himself,
Yep.
and what's his number? Almost 300 yards
Four
passing.
touchdowns.
He had
Four
four
touchdowns.
touchdowns, so really wasn't getting too much support in the running game. Their running backs were both averaging under 3 yards a carry. So I mean, he was basically doing it himself, like once again, and really spreading the ball around. Pearson L had a touchdown, so did Washington. Matt Jones actually looked strong, but kind of was at the beginning. He was ripping off some big runs, and then the running game really, really struggled towards the end.
Went down to 2.8 yards on average on 16 carries. But yeah, Tamu, I mean, it was fantasy XFL. This would be the guy you kind of wish you had. 4 touchdowns, 284 passing, 80% completion percentage.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he only had 7 incomplete passes, 2 of them being interceptions, unfortunately, but still a passer rate over 100. He's actually, like you said, number 3. I definitely will give him that. Receivers, I mean, Pearson L, 11 targets, 9 receptions, only 50 yards. He had a touchdown. And Washington, 77 on 6 receptions with a touchdown. So no standout receivers. He looks like Tamu does a really good job of spreading out the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know if just coincidentally, but
yeah, it's amazing. Actually, it's something maybe you don't see as much in the NFL. I mean, was it 9 different receivers with at least 1 reception for the Battlehawks, and even 8 over when you're looking at the Roughnecks. So I guess they're really using their eligible receivers. I know we were criticizing the rosters a bit. It's like, why do you need 9 wide receivers on your roster? We know some of the players are going to be special teams players and play in other positions, kind of those intangible positions. But it's really interesting seeing a lot of the players getting their hands on the ball, whether it's rushing or receiving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you were looking at defense, actually the Roughnecks gave up almost 400 yards of offense, 390 for the Battlehawks. Again, some of that was playing catch up and in the air, but this Roughnecks team wasn't one to sneeze at. Battlehawks did have 2 turnovers. I think did Tamu throw 2 picks? I think he did.
Yeah, he did.
So 2 very untimely interceptions, which really just really cut off drives and really killed a little bit of momentum. But they were really gaining it. I think the Battlehawks looked pretty good. I think they probably were fortunate last week that Landry Jones wasn't in there, but their offense looked like they were getting stuff together this week. So we'll have to see who they play next week when we do our preview show in a few days as we get ready for the Battlehawks to move on. I know they're coming to Tampa in the next few weeks.
Yeah, March 14th, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say mid-March. Battlehawks come over to Tampa, so I'll be excited to be at that game. PJ Walker, I mean, we got him over his side. Another brilliant outing. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 170 yards passing. He averaged 6.8 yards rushing, 4 rushes, only 27 yards, but he moves the ball. He's efficient, and he doesn't turn the ball over. So, again, I mean, between him and Cardale Jones, the number 1 and 2 quarterbacks right now, kind of debatable who you want to see as the better quarterback. I mean, Cardale Jones is obviously the better pocket passer. PJ Walker is more of the mobile quarterback and take off, make things happen a little bit more, kind of like your quote-unquote Russell Wilson of the XFL he's looking like so far. Receivers, again, with this team, it looks like he spreads the ball out pretty well. No standout receivers. Phillips, 8 catches, 63 yards, but he did catch all 3 touchdowns, though. So if he were there was fantasy XFL, Phillips is the receiver you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. So that final was 28-24. I think the score a little bit more close than what the game truly was. I think Battlehawks scored kind of a garbage time touchdown to get within 4. So for the most part, Roughnecks controlling play. They only had to run 49 offensive plays to the Battlehawks 83. So again, that defense really holding teams in check despite the amount of yards they gave up. Kind of a bend but don't break. We're not going to give up too many touchdowns. You can have all the yards you want. So 28-24 Roughnecks, they move to 2-0. Battlehawks go down to 1-1. Renegades at 1-1. Wildcats at the bottom 0-2. Guardians go to 1-1, and Defenders go to 2-0 with their win over New York.
And can we switch to Moose Cam?
Yeah.
Go on your monologue.
Yeah, it's time for the monologue because we're moving over to the week 2 recap for the Vipers and those Dragons. A big road trip over to Seattle for the Vipers' second road trip of the year, of course. Their first home game will be next week. And really, this did not go as planned. I think there was a little bit of drama with who was going to play quarterback, everyone clamoring for Quinton Flowers, and it ended up being Taylor Cornelius in there. Lots of negativity on Twitter, and why isn't Quinton Flowers starting? And all that had to happen was the first bad pass from Cornelius, and immediately it's, oh, why is he starting? Oh, we need Quinton Flowers. We need Flowers. And, we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth later, but he didn't really play that well either when the ball was in his hands, despite there being a little bit of movement thanks to the rushing game. Of course, another strong showing for the Vipers, 141 more yards on the ground to their 148 in the air. This game, and I know you didn't get to watch too much of it because you've got your stuff going on, but this game was tough to watch, even as trying to be excited for the weekend and knowing that the Vipers were going to be on to watch. Twitter was an absolute, zoo of what is going on with this team. And I think we're getting to the realization that maybe this team is not good. And
yeah,
I think we had that feeling when we were evaluating the draft, and maybe we were looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. It's like, oh, Aaron Murray, maybe he'll bounce back. But deep down, like we've talked about, we knew what happened with the Atlanta Legends, and his efforts to get into the NFL and his struggles with the Atlanta Legends. So I don't know why we thought it would be any different. And Trestman has struggled at the NFL level, at the CFL level. Not sure why we were going to bring in a conservative coach to coach in a non-conservative league. So we've really struggled there as well. So, that's kind of my views overall on the game. And then we can get into the nitty-gritty if you want, MRod.
Yeah, and just one thing for all you Twitter users and University of South Florida fans. I understand. I'm a graduate of University of South Florida too. But I understand that just because Quinton Flowers went to USF does not make him a great quarterback. That's going to be my first thing. So stop begging for him. His legs are good. He's got good legs, but obviously he can't throw. 3 completions on 7 attempts, interception. So,
but everyone's going to argue that he's not getting the chance, and it's hard to get in there and play effectively when it's like, all right, man, you're in. No, you're coming back out. Oh, thanks for getting us down the field. Now you're out. So
yeah,
that's I think that's going to be my argument. And I know and maybe that's probably what he signed up for, is to be that change of pace, right? But if we're having 2 quarterbacks that are struggling, why are we going to still have a disjointed approach to offense? I just don't understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was definitely atrocious to watch. I'm just joking about the Flowers thing because I know one of our buddies was begging for him. Man, I've just always messed with them. But yeah, I mean, neither quarterback looked really good. Nothing to really get on offense. I mean, outside of our running game, there's nothing to get excited about.
Jacques Patrick had a great game. Kind of spelling Devion Smith. Devion having a decent game at 50 yards, but really it was Patrick who really had the runs that converted into first downs and gave us a little bit of momentum.
And I mean, this team cannot look any more like they are trying to replicate the Buccaneers. Quarterback issues, interceptions is what's costing us games. We have a great tight end, Truesdale, who's probably the same skill set as O.J. Howard. But
can't get the ball to him.
Can't get the ball to him. So I mean, can't do much there. I was glad to see Shontavious Jones actually have a catch this time. 5 targets. I mean, look at all these receivers. I'm looking at how many.
Yeah, Reese Horn had a great game when they got the ball to him. Again, leading receiver.
But outside of that, four targets to Tolliver, 2 receptions, 6 yards. Montavious Jones, 5 targets, 1 catch. Davion Smith, 3 targets, 1 catch. McAvoy, or whatever his name is,
McAvoy.
two targets, 1 reception. Truesdale, I mean, he was most accurate, 5 targets, 4 receptions. But I'm saying is like obviously these receptions are probably bad passes. That's why they're not getting to them. So, like, we need to get something figured out here. Um, I don't know if maybe we need to just stick. You want to start Cornelius? Stick with him the whole game. You want to start Flowers? Stick with him the game.
Yeah, you can't. I just, you're already not listening to the fans, and by starting Cornelius when everyone was going nuts for Flowers. So, I mean, you're right. You gotta stick with them unless you're committed to going to Quinton Flowers full time. You can't be this. Cornelius didn't work out this drive. We'll put Flowers in for like 3 plays. Then now Cornelius is gonna go back in. I mean, we saw that in the first week with Aaron Murray, and it didn't work.
Yep, you got to give them consistency, and that's how they're gonna get better and build chemistry with receivers is by consistency. Changing them out every couple series is not going to build chemistry. It's not going to build consistency. And you're gonna have someone coming in there cold each time they come into the thing, into the drive. But it's just come on, let's just stick with one quarterback. I don't care who it is. I don't care. Just I want one for the entire game. Maybe if you want to run a wildcat play, okay, bring in
Yeah,
Flowers
for a
if you
change of
decide to start
pace,
him.
which is what he signed up for and what we expected. Kind of our trick play guy, but you're not really even using him for that. I mean, he comes in and hands the ball off, or runs a designed quarterback run, and then Cornelius or Murray's back in, which again is fine, but got to be committed. And Cornelius's numbers, weren't bad, almost 60% completion rating, but again, it's just untimely interceptions, which is what we saw with the Buccaneers this year and why they struggled. Uh, Buccaneers defense, just like the Vipers defense, actually playing really well, holding teams to under 200 yards of offense.
And
But
short fields too with those
short, and that's a
interceptions.
problem. Is these interceptions are resulting in short fields where the other team doesn't have to do anything. They just have to drive like 20 yards to get in a field goal range. And then let's talk about stats. And I think you brought up a great point about when we were getting ready about Silver's. Was it 91 total yards, right?
91 passing yards. He was 39% completion percentage.
7 out of 18.
And okay, so this is the thing that I kind of noticed. Okay, so Brandon Silvers, 91 passing yards, right? One pass that was a touchdown. Was it? Yeah, his only touchdown, right? Pass, yes, one touchdown pass was to Reynolds, which was a 68-yard
It's the
touchdown
bomb.
pass.
He connected on a bomb. So basically, and this happened, I think, in the first quarter. Might have even been the first like Seattle possession, right? Oh no, this was in the third quarter. It was a really really brutal game that first half because that's when Vipers got on the board of the field goal and then they had a pick six. But yeah, so coming out of halftime, yeah, it was the bomb from Silvers, and then he basically the rest of the game 23 yards, and that probably
So
included in the first half. I'd have to see how many yards he had in the first half. So he might have actually had less than 23 yards after that bomb, given that he had some passing yards in the first quarter. But that's crazy. That's crazy to me that your defense plays that well that they hold someone to under 100 yards passing, and we can't find a way to get it done.
no, they hold somebody to pretty much 23 yards passing the whole game, sans one pass, and we still cannot win this game. That is just crazy to me. I mean, the, every running back on the Dragons had more rushing yards than he did outside of that 60-yard touchdown pass
Yep.
passing. So
That's
I
a great
mean,
way to look at it too. I mean, and we knew that they were going to have their three-headed attack rushing when we previewed the teams. Williams and Farrow splitting most of the carries there, and actually Gardner got up there with 10. But
yeah,
like you
all double
said,
digits.
over 100 yards for the team, 110.
I mean, their receivers. I mean, Reynolds had 8 targets, 3 receptions, 87 yards, the only touchdown. So the secondary played amazing. If you think about it, take off that 68-yard touchdown. He really, outside of that, all the receivers were held under like 20 yards.
Yeah,
And you got Hamlet only had 11 yards. I mean, you had three receivers, Pearl, Johnson, and Williams, negative yards. They were stopped in the backfield.
that's right.
Like,
With Austin Prohl being the big story of Week 1, held them to nothing. I mean, negative yards.
negative yards on 4 targets, 1 reception. So, like, that secondary played lights out. I mean, Vipers defense looked really, really good. So.
Yeah, I think they had 8 tackles for loss. They finally got their first sacks of the year. One by Branch on a corner blitz. And then I think we had 2 corner blitz sacks. It looks like Priester got a sack as well, or from the safety position. So 2 sacks. Still struggling with pass rush pressure. We're getting pressure on the blitzes when, like, the 20% of the time that they're actually hitting home with the blitzes. But at least we got a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. I mean, that's going to have to be the case this week against the Roughnecks to even have a chance against PJ Walker. But
And Hamlet, not Hamlet, McFadden got our first Vipers touchdown in Vipers
that's
history.
right, on a
And it
pick
was a pick
six.
six. Yep.
Then looking at some of the efficiencies, again, not bad on third down. Actually, over 50%, 9 out of 17. Fourth down, those where you got to make some of those conversions. 0 for 3. Red zone once again, 0 for 3 in the red zone in terms of touchdowns. So still having 8 quarters now, no offensive touchdowns, and a 0% red zone rating for the Vipers. 141 on the ground, 148 in the air. Overall, 289 to the Dragons, 199.
Yeah, I mean, once again, just like last week, offensive efficiency, we blew them away. And rushing in and passing, defense looked pretty good. It's just about those interceptions, giving them short fields and letting them work their way into the field goals and scoring points and not being able to score points on our end. Defense still looking pretty good. So, I mean, Vipers, that quarterback position is their, similar like the Buccaneers, is their Achilles heel.
Yeah, final of course for the game. Dragons coming out on top 17-9 in the last game of the Saturday set of games. Let's move on to our segment. I think last week we did pluses and minuses. Kind of didn't really like how pluses and minuses came out. So moved it over to kind of rename the segment Good, Bad, and Ugly. We'll talk about what was good, of course, what was bad, and what was the ugly in the game. So let's pull that up. Good, bad, and ugly. MRod, why don't you take that first one? Take the good. Yeah, you're feeling more positive than me today. Take the good.
Yeah, the good run game once again. Run game looking strong. I don't know if that's attributed to the offensive line or just the running backs looking pretty good, but I want to say the offensive line, but at the same time, if our offensive line was playing well, I mean, you know what? The offensive line is playing well enough to get some rushing yards. It's the quarterbacks that are not playing good. So yeah, rushing game looking good. Run game, some run blocking, obviously looking good there. Defense looked really good this week also. Like I said, outside of that 68-yard pass, kept Brandon Silvers at 23 yards, less than 100 pass, under 40% completion percentage. Secondary looked lights out, got us our first pick six. So defense did everything they could possibly do to help us win. Even got us a touchdown.
Give us a chance. Yeah, they gave us a chance, and it was a one-score game with the 2-point conversion. So again, kept us in the game. And I'm with you. I'm on board if you're there. The run, I don't know why we do a better job at run blocking. We're really opening up holes, and our running game looks strong, but we struggled again in pass protection. 4 sacks given up by the offensive line, and again, a couple other quarterback hits in there as well. So again, pressure on Cornelius and Flowers, who got sacked a few times each. Let's move over to the bad, and we've talked about these a little bit at length as we went through the game, but really pass protection has been a huge Achilles heel for the team, and we've identified that game 1 and game 2, and let me tell you something. It's not going to get any better in Game 3 against the Roughnecks. This is somewhere where we have to improve, find a way to improve immediately, keep a running back in to help with pass coverage, bring in a second tight end. I don't really know what the solution is going to be because we are really struggling with pass protection and getting our quarter. It doesn't matter who the quarterback's going to be. We talked about it last week. You're going to have Tom Brady back there, but if he has 1 second to throw the ball before he has to move and be off balance and throw off a back foot or be throwing on the run across his body, doesn't matter. We're not going to complete passes, or we're going to get sacked, or we're going to we're going to throw interceptions. It's as simple as that.
Where we at? The ugly. We're gonna move over to the ugly.
No, we're still in the bad. Now we're still talking quarterback play, kind of a transition off pass protection into quarterback play. When we were having good, the few times that we were having good pass blocking, then our quarterbacks played like garbage, and that's Flowers included, because we saw a lot of heat on Twitter and on the boards of, oh, Flowers needs to play. And again, looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, I know we're all big supporters of the USF program and anyone who graduates, and we all bleed gold and green, but we got to relax with, we got to understand that Quinton Flowers may also not be good. And it's amazing to me that the Vipers may potentially have striked out at the quarterback position 0-for-3 on having anyone who could throw the football.
Hey, we got one more guy on the roster, Litton.
That's right. Yep. I don't want to forget. Maybe it's fourth time's a charm. And then the last bad, and I feel bad saying this week too, but I mean, I think the Vipers are just a bad team. I think we're just bad. And we're at Hot Takes, we'll talk about our realistic expectations, I guess, or predictions, and I think this team is just bad. It's a bad team.
That's why I said the ugly, because it falls under the ugly. Might as well just make good and ugly, because it should all be ugly.
Yeah. Maybe we'll take the first ugly there, the coaching. Oh, gosh. Talk to me about coaching, MRod.
Offensive coaching, terrible. There's no scheme, no identity. They just seem like they're just changing. I mean, I know Matt McGloin said we got to change our whole offensive scheme, change everything. It seems like that's what they're doing every single drive. They're just changing off it.
They took Matt McGloin's advice immediately, even though he was a couple states away last week. And I think you said it perfectly. What is our identity right now? Our identity is we can't score, and
we're identity. I mean, we can kind of run, but not enough to get to the end zone. Quarterbacks can't do anything. I mean, we have a quarterback that can run and throw, but then we change them out. I mean, I just want to know, like, what kind of offensive team are we?
What do we want to accomplish? Are we gonna we don't stick to a game plan? And look, I'm all for having a dynamic game plan. If something's not working, you got to change your attack. You got to make your halftime adjustments. But
no, absolutely,
but it's like nothing is working. Nothing is working.
But not drive per drive adjustments.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It seems like it's a different offensive plan every time. It's like Mark Trestman is just pulling a plan out of the hat and says, all right, this drive we're going to do this. And then next drive he's like, all right, let's pick out something else. Put your hand inside the hat, see what you pick out. All right, that's what we're going to roll with.
Yep.
And it's just absolutely terrible. It's like we don't even know what quarterback we're playing with. He's like flips a coin. He's like, Flowers, heads or tails. Flowers like tails. All right, you're in. Oh, you didn't get it this time. So yeah, and then so it's just the coaching is on the offensive side is terrible. Defensively, coach has to go under the good. Defensively,
that's Jerry Glanville, right? This is Glanville's defense, and
yep.
I love the interviews. I'm telling you, Glanville's like, I don't even know what we're doing out there. We're just playing defense. I'm not even calling anything. It's like, because they asked him, it's like, Jerry, your defensive calls don't seem very long or complicated. He's like, yeah. We just play defense. It's like, yep, that's typical Jerry Glanville right there.
Yeah, so defensive side. So I guess we on the ugly, we should change that to just offensive coaching, because defensive coaching looked really good, lights out. Red zone efficiency.
Yeah, we talked about it. Just 0%.
0%. I mean, can't get any worse than that. So I mean, there's not really much we're going to sit here and elaborate on red zone efficiency. We can't barely get into the red zone, and when we do, we throw an interception. Um, and then offensive scheme, just question mark. We'll just leave it at that question mark because I have
Still
no idea.
work in progress. We'll see what happens this Saturday against the Roughnecks. Let's get some hot takes out there. I got 3 hot takes for you, and we talked a little bit about the Vipers QB play, but let's expand this to XFL wide. We talked about our 3 kind of big all stars, maybe 4 now, right? With Cardell Jones getting some love, Landry Jones, Jordan Tamu, really your big 3 in terms of wide, and PJ Walker. So I mean,
Yeah, I forgot about him.
you're looking at 3 to 4 quarterbacks that are above and beyond the other 4 quarterbacks or 4 quarterback positions, because there's been multiple starters for a few of the teams that are struggling. I mean, this is potentially something that could be an issue for the XFL, especially as most of the games so far have been hitting the under.
Mhm.
The big selling point of the XFL was, oh, there's going to be points, and the rules are going to be offensive friendly, and we're going to have these pace of play rules that there's going to be more offensive production and more opportunities on offense. But then you have teams scoring 9 points and 17 points and 18 points. Where in the NFL, I mean, the NFL is outscoring the XFL on average through week 2, for instance, of the 19 season, by about 6 points on average. I think I saw the statistic. So part of me thinks it's quarterback play in general. I think we're seeing our top quarterbacks, for the Renegades and the Roughnecks playing well, but the other quarterbacks are really bad. I mean, they are
Yeah,
bad.
I completely agree. I mean, it is definitely outside those 4 quarterbacks, the other 4 just are absolutely not good. Because I mean, I guess if you are a good quarterback, you're probably third stringer on a practice squad in the NFL. So
Yeah,
it's
or you're
probably
doing Nike commercials and not wanting to play,
yeah, or you're
or
doing
doing
that.
insurance commercials like Johnny Manziel. So I don't know.
He had a shot to AAF and he blew it, so
Or
he was
play
not very good.
baseball with for the New York Mets.
Yeah, that would. I wish.
Man, if
I
they
wish
brought
Tebow
Tebow, I
would.
wish they would bring Tebow. That'd be.
Yeah, me too. Tebow won't do that.
I know.
But outside of that, I mean, talking about point scoring and stuff like that, it's just I think it has to do more with like just rust and an experience. If you got an experienced offense and experienced defense is always going to win because it's much easier to play defense. You just tackle the guy and run at the guy full speed and cover the guy. Where in offense is a lot more strategic, a lot more knowing when to cut and when to stop, when to run, what play to run, and how to block. It's a lot more strategy in the offense. I just think that has to do more with just inexperience. Only been 2 games. A lot of these people haven't really played much, started much since college. So I think as we get more into like week 4 and 5, you'll see the offense start taking a little bit more, building a little more chemistry, receivers running their routes correctly, and the playbook starting to expand. So I'm not too concerned when it comes to that. That's just going to take time. But yeah, no, the outside like the quarterbacks, that's something that's going to be potentially an issue. Just not enough star power. PJ Walker's making a name for himself. Cardell Jones has been making a name for himself since Ohio State. Um, then Landry Jones from Oklahoma, playing with Bob Stoops, definitely has a name for himself. But we'll have to see how the other pan out. But right now, Tampa quarterbacks. I mean, I get Murray and Flowers probably have a name for themselves in the Tampa Bay area because that's where they're from, made their names. Um, but yeah, quarterback play, we definitely need something better out there. And Tampa Bay probably is looking for a new quarterback next year. I mean, Winston maybe.
Well, Winston. I think we all know Winston's going to end up on the Buccaneers, but I mean, I'm kind of curious what the offseason is going to look like in the XFL. I mean, is there going to be a similar type draft, or kind of a smaller draft? Because are, what's free agency going to look like?
Yeah.
Because I'm really curious. If we decide to move on from these 3 guys, I mean, that's something for me that I'm curious about is how aggressive is the XFL going to be in terms of money, I guess. I know right now they're trying to to run it bare bones, and everyone's making whatever bonus money for every win. Whether they're splitting $100,000 per win on top of their base salaries, which are kind of small. Kind of hoping we see something, and what I really think helped the MLS grow is they had some designated players where each team had one or two players when it started that they could pay like unlimited amounts of money to, and then
Mm.
then you had a salary cap for the rest of your team essentially. But you could have like your designated superstar. So hypothetically, the Bucks could be like, "Hey, Taylor Lawrence, we're going to give you $100 million," or the Vipers could go to Lawrence, to Trevor Lawrence, and say, "Hey, we've got $100 million for you. Come play for the Vipers," and
Oh, that's
he
pretty
he
cool.
could be their
Yeah.
designated player. I mean, I know that sparks inequity talks, and how's the rest of the locker room gonna feel when you have $100 million guy, and then everyone else is making like $71,000, or whatever the amount is for the XFL. So
That makes sense.
so
Yeah, it definitely needs a little bit of star power, something that someone that the fans get behind, rally behind, and look forward to. And right now, the Vipers don't really have that player right now, like some other teams do.
wanted to talk about the crowds in general. We saw in most places that had a home game like DC, and Houston even as well, that their crowds went down, a little bit, as high as 10 to 12%. Really, some of the numbers being skewed with Seattle's first home game, and they had about 29,000 fans. I think St. Louis expecting 30,000 in the old dome where the Rams used to play this week. So I'm just hoping that this is going to be sustainable. I mean, again, hats off to Seattle. That's got to be one of the best sports cities in the U.S. I mean, they get behind anything. Doesn't matter if it's the
Yeah.
Sounders. Doesn't matter if it's the Seahawks. It just doesn't matter who it is. They're going to get behind that team. So I think that was a great selection having Seattle there. But I'm kind
Yeah,
of concerned.
it's
Yeah, go ahead.
elaborating on what you're saying there. I'm kind of surprised they didn't put a team in Portland because Portland's a city very similar to Seattle. You got the Timbers and you got the Trailblazers, and they're pretty sold out. This Portland gets behind their sports teams pretty well, just very similar to Seattle. So I'm surprised they didn't put a team there.
Yeah, you're right. And even they're playing in soccer specific stadiums like the Wildcats play where the Galaxy play. No reason why a Portland team could have played where the Timbers play. That's
Hmm.
maybe I think it's up to 25,000 seats now. So yeah, that would have been a really interesting play. Maybe it's talks for expansion when the time comes, but we'll keep watching the crowds. I'm kind of curious what the Tampa crowd's going to look like this week. Tampa fans are known to be not the most dedicated sometimes, especially when the team is losing.
Exactly.
So
If we were 2-0, they might have to look at
yeah,
the third
we have to
level.
look to bring out the third level for Raymond James, but I'm really curious to see what that's going to look like at Raymond James. And then just kind of closing out, of course, with our realistic
But crowds
predictions.
wise,
Oh, yeah,
sorry to go
no, no,
about
good.
crowds wise, do you think, maybe some teams will have better attendance if they had weekday games? Sometimes on the weekends, you got days off, families, things still going on. It's not really NFL season, which people plan for the month in advance. I was wondering something maybe like weekday games. I know they don't have any weekday games this year. I was just kind of curious. I think that might do well for boosting crowds, in my opinion.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Or maybe like a big primetime game. Hopefully, that's in the plans as the XFL hopefully gains some traction and is more popular. Are you thinking like Thursday or Monday or?
Just a day during the week. I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't think they want to do Monday or Thursday because that's their WWE days. So they probably want to keep those days separated. So maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday or something like that.
Right.
Something to just to be kind of like a night game. I know in Tampa, for example, for Buccaneers, I mean, usually their weekday games usually do really well. I know people are trying to hide from the heat, so the Sunday afternoon games. But I usually go to a lot of the Buccaneers games when they're on a Thursday, Monday night. We don't really get those often because we haven't been too good. But when we do get them, I like to go, and the crowd's usually pretty good. So.
Yeah. So hopefully that's something that's in the works for future state. I think there's a couple night games coming up. Whether that's kind of
Next
a
weekend, it's 7 o'clock.
right 7 o'clock for who's
The
probably
Defenders.
Defenders are I think they're away at LA. So I guess technically not a night
No,
game.
no. Defenders are here in Tampa. Seven
Oh,
o'clock
next
next
week. Yeah,
Sunday.
that's right.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, see, that's a great segue to realistic predictions for the Vipers. I know we were really excited a couple weeks ago. We didn't really make predictions as to where we would finish. The odds makers had us second best odds to win the championship, which was crazy. Definitely crazy now.
Yeah.
But like you said, we got the Defenders coming to town the following week for week 4. Battlehawks in week 5 or 6, I think.
At LA.
At LA, who looks a lot better. I this team could go 0-10. I mean,
I'm gonna say 1-9.
The way they've been playing, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. Like, I'm trying to be real, looking at our offense, and if we're ever gonna get good quarterback play, and especially as great as some of the teams that we're playing coming up. I mean, easy 0-4. Easy 0-4.
Oh yeah, we'll lose. I don't think we win again until.
I mean, LA is maybe our first next chance.
Yeah.
Is week 5 against the Wildcats.
Well, we'll see after Josh Johnson plays again this weekend, and I'll tell you whether we have a chance or not.
Yeah, because like we said, the LA looked like they were actually coming alive at one point of that game. They looked a lot better than they did in week 1. So I don't know. I mean, this is a team that could go 0-10, which would be a very fitting thing for a new Tampa football franchise. Still got a ways to go to catch the Buccaneers, but certainly 0-10 would be a great way to welcome football to the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What were the Bucks when they first came out? Were they like
it's 23 before they got
23
before they got their first win?
So, well, that's Tampa football, right?
And then, of course, we've got the updated interception counter. We had to change it to the Vipers quarterbacks now that we have 3 that have played and thrown an interception. Total of 5 on the Vipers interception board. On pace if they were playing a 16-game NFL season for 40 interceptions. Putting into perspective, maybe Jameis isn't so bad after all. So sign him up. Sign him up immediately. I think that brings us to the end of episode 6 of the Viper's Nest. Appreciate you guys listening. And be on the lookout. Episode 7 should follow up pretty quickly. Probably just me on Friday doing our typical preview show, keys to the game, and all that fun stuff that we do for our preview episode against the Roughnecks, first home game of the year for the Vipers. MRod, I think you're not going to be able to make this one.
Yeah, I probably won't be able to make the next two shows at least.
Well, I mean the football game.
Oh yeah, the game. No, I won't be able to make the game this Saturday. I was planning on going. Some things came up that I got to take care of. Found out today, so won't be able to make this game, unfortunately. So I will not be there. So fans, don't be looking for me with the white fedora, which I was planning on wearing to the game. But I will be there week 2, March 1st against the Defenders. So I've been looking forward to that game, and I should be at every game after that.
Awesome.
And the other thing is, Moose, I was thinking maybe after week 3, which is this coming week, or maybe after week 4 when I can definitely be on the show here again, we need to do our power rankings.
Yeah,
I've seen some power rankings out there I didn't like, and I want to do our own power rankings.
We'll have the
Vipers.
XFL. We'll have the Vipers Nest power rankings. I'll give you 3 good guesses as to which team is number 8. But we'll have those for you as we get to week 4. I think maybe we'll do our kind of like the college football playoff does. They wait till like week 8 to make their first standings. Maybe we'll get into week 3 and week 4 should be enough to have seen where we think teams should lie on our power rankings. So that is it for us. Episode 6 of the Viper's Nest. Hope you enjoyed. We will see you in a few days, or at least I will, for the preview show for week 3, and then we'll be back next week again with our recap of week 3 and preview of week 4. If you love our other shows, Thunderdome Puckcast should be dropping in the next few days as well. Lightning on an 11-game winning streak. Unheard of. That's 2 winning streaks of at least 10 in a row in a season. That hasn't happened in 50 years. So Bolts are looking good. Might have to do MRod. Might have to do
made a trade too.
Yeah, made a big trade. We'll talk about the Coleman trade. Then we might have to drop a little bit of an episode of Bucking Hangover. A little bit of Bucks news to go over as they get ready for free agency and the draft. So a little bit of rumors out there. So maybe we should try our best to squash some rumors or even add to the rumors from the stuff that maybe we've heard from our sources.
I got some bold predictions.
Got some bold predictions, hot takes. I love hot takes. Do some Bucks hot takes as well. So that's been it. It's been Moose and Emrod. Have a great night.
Yep, have a great night. Thanks for watching.